I was going to see how long it took for the room to get quiet if I didn't say anything. All right, so we know what the hot ticket is on Monday night. Is that what it is? Monday night in Cape Charles. It is this being here. Welcome to everyone who's here and anybody who's watching online. On behalf of the Cape Charles Historic District Civic League, I'm Sam Jones. I'm the current president of that, and we are really pleased to be sponsoring the Meet the Candidates Forum to really give everybody an opportunity to make sure you know who's running. If you've been following that, you will have seen that the number of candidates has shrunk. There were 11, now there are 8. When you see your ballot, you may see some additional names here, but if the folks aren't here or at least listed up here, they have pulled out and it was too late to take them off the ballot. But again, the Civic League, one of our missions is to keep the citizens of Cape Charles informed about what's going on around town. And there's really nothing more important than elections and your elected officials because they make so many decisions that impact us. So again, thank all of you for coming. Thank all the candidates for their willingness to serve the town and and running for that. And I will thank Marty Mayor here. Many of you know him. He will serve as moderator. And I have to thank Libby Hume back there in the back, who has been great. She spends her evenings so many times. Thank you. Thank you. She spends so much time here, and she walked me through this process, so I didn't look but so foolish. So now I'll turn it over to Marty. Oh, the cards that you find there, if you have questions you would like us to ask, write it on the card. We will have a short break in the middle, so write your questions before them and put them in the basket. I will not guarantee we will ask them. We have 4 prepared questions that we've already provided to the candidates, but if we have time, we may use those. So if you have a question, put it in the basket by the break, which will be like after our second question, I think. Thank you much.
Thank you, Sam. Good evening and welcome to the Cape Charles Historic District Civic League's Meet the Candidates Forum. My name is Marty Mayer and I will be your moderator tonight. I'll be walking us through introductions, the format, and eventually a series of question and answer segments with the candidates. Before getting started, I had this in my notes before Sam said it, but I wanted to thank Miss Libby Hume for the technical support and the town of Cape Charles for agreeing to host our little forum this evening. A special thank you to each of our candidates for agreeing to participate tonight, but more importantly for stepping up to fill these positions. Positions which will have an impact not just on the future direction of our small town, but also on the day-to-day lives of its residents. The forum is being live streamed to the town's Facebook page and will later be archived on the town website in the Cape Charles Historic District Civic League Facebook page. With that out of the way, I would like to briefly discuss the format for tonight's discussion. To make this clear, our discussion this evening is simply that. It's a discussion, it's a forum to talk about the pressing issues and ideas in the town and to learn how the candidates view them and intend to address these issues. This is not a debate, and the format as follows will reflect that. Each question in the first segment this evening will be addressed to each candidate. Given the number of candidates, it is important that opening and closing comments, as well as answers to questions, be brief and concise. There will be a timekeeper to assist with the process, who you've already met. Time permitting, we will solicit questions from the audience prior to closing statements. For everyone in the audience, if you have not yet had the opportunity, there should be index cards on your chairs. If you would like to potentially have a question asked, just write that down. There's a basket in the back of the room on the table. So we'll go through those during the break in between the second and third questions. I'll start by asking the first question, beginning with the candidate in the first position, which would be Tara Ashworth. In order to move things along, the question will not be repeated unless requested. The second question will begin with the candidate in the last position, Mr. Ed Wells, and that will move from right to left. Additional questions will follow this same format, but begin with the individual in the second position and the 8th position, respectively. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question, and there will be an additional 30 seconds added for a brief follow-up or if I would like additional clarity. Any questions on the format? Any participants? Okay. Let's begin tonight with candidate opening statements. We'll start in the middle. Mr. Buchholz indicated his excitement to go first. Each candidate has 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Please include how long you've lived in Cape Charles, any civic or volunteer activities you've participated in, relevant work experience, or anything else that you feel qualifies you for this position. Andy, if you want to get started.
All right. My name's Andy Buchholz. A lot of you know me. There's a lot of new faces, too. I purchased my home in 2003 and moved down here full-time with 2 small children in 2004. So I've been over here over 20 years. In that period of time, I started a business, Eastern Shore Signs, just on the way into Sheridan, and we're in our 13th year. I have 5 full-time employees year-round. We do about $800,000. Is this working?
We're just having a hard time hearing.
It's as close as it's going to get. I'll be eating a microphone. So I started a business in 2011. I was in my 13th year at Eastern Shore Signs. I have 5 employees. We do over $850,000 in annual sales. For a population of 10,000, those numbers don't equate. So there's plenty of room for you, anybody that comes here, to start a business, because there's nothing here. And it's one of the things we've tried to strive to do over the years. I was a member of the Northampton Chamber of Commerce. Oh, no, sorry. I was awarded the Northampton Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year twice, and the Eastern Shore Virginia Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year once. I was on Planning Commission from 2012 to March of 2016. I was a board member of Cape Charles Business Association from 2013 to 2016. At that time, I became a council member from 2016 till present. I've worked with 3 town managers, 3 mayors, 10 council people on, you name it, everything you can think of. We've changed zoning a couple times. We've changed a lot of stuff a couple times. I was a board member of the Northampton Education Foundation from 2016 through 18 as a business liaison to help the group out. In 2017, myself and 3 other people were on the Community Enhancement Program, which basically started to form Cape Charles Main Street. I was very adamant of starting that from scratch and not trying to roll the business association into that. We ended up getting that started, and I was the first president of Cape Charles Main Street. And in that first year, we did a lot of legwork, which was setting up all the committees, all the bylaws for that group. So that's what I've done for 20 years.
Thanks, Andy. Clayton?
All righty. My name is Clayton Newman. I live with my wife, Lisa, at 10 Randolph here in the Historic District. We've been here now full-time since 2005, although we built our house, 2020, although we built our house here in 2005. But I have probably over 30 years of history here because of the fact that my mother moved here full-time in the early 90s. So I've gotten to witness a lot of change here and gotten to witness that change through a lot of different perspectives, both as a tourist to begin with, helping her look at properties in the town and questioning her decision about whether or not this was maybe the best place for her. My early stays at the Seagate B&B and being scolded by Chris Bannon because I went out after dark to get a soda on Mason Avenue and said that's just not something you should be doing. So I've seen a lot of things happen in that time. I've been a house guest. I finally built a second home that I never intended to rent for a minute, but we ended up doing so out of necessity in 2009. Had we not had the opportunity to do that, we probably would have lost the house and had it foreclosed upon because it wasn't just a simple decision of selling it. We would have had to bring cash to the table to get out of it because of what we paid to build it. We continued to rent our house off and on, but spent a lot of full summers here from the day our boys got out of school to the day they had to go back, and I went back and forth to Loudoun County where we lived for 22 years. And there are many years we rented our house just for the week of Thanksgiving or Christmas, or maybe for a golf weekend for people in the fall when that was still an opportunity to do that here in the historic district. But finally, our goal was always to get here. And when my youngest son went off to college, we made that call and thought about doing it many times before that, but it was finally the right time. As far as my civic engagement, I've certainly been an active participant in a lot of things here since we've moved here. I wish I had one fraction of my mother's community service resume. I mean, she's been involved in, I think, every nonprofit that she's come across, it seems like sometimes, but I volunteered at the Eastern Shore Community College events where she's served on the foundation board for 12 years. I was part of, back in 2003, I helped her to start the Cape Charles Committee on Children and Youth that sort of spurred from a shooting that we had here in the park. And instead of just only looking at additional police and patrolling, we thought about a way to get youth involved. I'm sorry, I caught that out of the corner of my eye. Thank you.
Carol?
I'm Carol Sabo, and about 24 years ago, we visited Cape Charles for the first time. Within 3 months, we had bought a property on 600 block of Randolph. We were smitten. I've been a visitor, I've been a part-time resident, and for the last 8 years, I've been a full-time resident. Prior to moving here, I was an equine vet in Northern Virginia, so I know all about sprawl, I know all about traffic, I know all about that stuff. I gradually divested of my practice. I purchased a Machipongo Trading Company, the coffee shop in Machipongo, and started running that. And since then, I've partnered with my sister, Beth Ann, to purchase 401 Mason Avenue, and we turned it into Peach Street Books with a historic renovation. I feel I can be an asset on the town council because of my 24-year history with the town, my varied background in medicine and small business, both of which require hard work and good problem-solving skills. I volunteered with the CCMS and then Nature Conservancy. I'm on the board of Northampton County Education Foundation, and I was on the board of the old Cape Charles Business Association before it morphed into CCMS. I love this area so much that I convinced my mom, my dad, my brother and his family, my sister and her family, to all come live here. I think that says a lot. Thank you.
My name is Mark Ussery, and I came to Cape Charles for the first time in 1996 to help friends move out of the house that they had next door to Bruce and Carol's bed and breakfast, Cape Charles House B&B. And while here, I found out we were moving the entire house out. But while we were here and on the way down from the Shenandoah Valley where we all lived, my friend made a phone call, and that night there were 35 people at a potluck to meet the new folks in town. And so from that point forward, I told my ex that this was where I wanted to retire. So 2 years ago, I did retire here to Cape Charles. In the meantime, I did volunteer and was pretty involved in the activities of the community. I was the founding president of Citizens for Central Park. When we came to town, the park was encircled by a 6 feet tall chain link fence. And over the last 21, 22 years, 4 years almost, the park has morphed into what it is today. I was a Texan by birth, Oklahoman by circumstances, Virginian by choice. I worked and led a political party in Oklahoma. I worked as an executive director of a fraternal organization in Lexington, Virginia, and then started teaching my passion at James Madison University for 20 years. I taught business law, and then took a job at Bloomsville University of Pennsylvania for another 14 years, and then retired 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago now. My volunteer work besides Citizens for Central Park includes being asked last fall to serve on the Cape Charles Rosenwald School Renovation Initiative Board, and so I'm serving on that board as well. And then prior board experience or prior volunteer experience, helped found the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Stillwater, Oklahoma, served on that board in Harrisonburg, Virginia, where I lived, and worked on the part of the Virginia Board of Directors as we rebuilt that organization some years ago. And I guess that's about it.
Thanks, Mark. Ed?
Hi, my name is Ed Wells, and I want to thank the Cape Charles Historic Civic League for inviting us here tonight. I lived here for the past 6.5 years, but my first connection to town was 37 years ago in 1987. I first came down here to help my brother Jim Wells and Chris Bannon restore and renovate the first B&B in town. Although I didn't move here, some years later in 2001, I bought some property here. And in 2010, I built a home here, and that's where we live presently. My civic volunteer activities include past chairman of the Historic District Review Board, and also vice president of the Cape Charles Historic District Civic League. I am a member of the Cape Charles Building Code of Appeals, and that's my civic and volunteer. I have a lot of volunteer activities with Main Street. I'm nervous. I get nervous speaking in public. Excuse me. My relevant work experience: I was a small business owner for 35 years as a home builder and general contractor. I decided to run here because I think I have the experience to help the town with small land use, zoning, building codes, and I think I can be a good fit in what's being planned for the future of Cape Charles with workforce housing, a new municipal building, and the beachfront plan. I think I can bridge and help our community to a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. If everyone could just move the mics a little bit closer to them, I think it would help. Martin, you're up.
Yes, my name is Martin Beckett. I am a hometown boy. I'm originally from Cape Charles, born and raised in Cape Charles, went to Cape Charles High School, ended up going in the Army, was in the Army for 12 years. After my 12-year stint in the Army, got out, went to college. My major in college was history, as well as a minor in political science. I taught for 23 years in the Mount Vernon City School District, and I decided after 23 years and a very bad back injury to come home and retire and try to uplift our community. I'm here for the people and people only. Our citizens are great people, and I would like to make Cape Charles not just a town, but a city where everybody wants to come home to.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you very much, Civic League, for hosting this event tonight. Can you all hear me?
Sorry.
Sorry, that gave me a chance to start over. Okay, so can everyone hear me? Is that good? Okay, I don't know if I can read my notes with this thing in my face, but good evening. Thank you for having us this evening, Civic League, for hosting this. My name's Tara Ashworth, and I hope by the end of this evening I'll be able to earn your vote for Cape Charles Town Council. I've been coming to Cape Charles ever since my parents retired about 25 miles up the road some 20-odd years ago. My husband and I were married here, and from the moment we got married here, we dreamed about when could we move here. We would sit at home at night on our Saturdays, they were very boring, and talk about how can we buy a house in Cape Charles, and instead of doing that, which would have been much more lucrative, we kept having more children. So finally in 2018, we bought our first home here and spent a lot of time here, and finally decided that we were ready to move our family down here, and we did that in 2021. Since we've moved down here, I've been able to use my background in business administration, marketing, and event planning to a whole host of and variety of activities in town. I've been involved with Cape Charles Main Street as co-chair of promotions, putting on Festive Fridays, Love Fest, and the Love Run. I spearheaded the movement to close down Mason Avenue for Festive Fridays to ensure our safety and to light the trees on Mason Avenue to give it great ambiance during the season. I also am involved with and sit on the board of Cape Charles Memorial Library and serve in multiple capacities with St. Charles Church. In particular, I've worked with a great group of friends and parishioners to put on the Oktoberfest at St. Charles, now 3 years running. If any of you haven't bought tickets, I've got plenty with me. Come and see me at the end of the event. I decided to run for town council to bring my perspective as a parent raising our children in Cape Charles to the hard work and planning that needs to be done for the future of this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe Bronson. I live on Tazewell Avenue. My life, I think, is far more boring than all my co-runners. My husband and I came down on vacation during COVID. We intended to stay for the New Year's Eve weekend, and we wound up buying a house before we left, which was just so of the spur of the moment, but it's like everybody says, you're just hooked by the charm. We absolutely love it here. In my previous life, I was a former licensed civil engineer. My forte was heavy highway and bridge design. I spent 40 years probably, writing technical specifications. So that's helpful when you're reading technical documents and looking at plans. You know, I think that it's helpful having that background. Since we've moved down here, I became a Mamie to 3. My kids never told me about this, so I have 3 grandchildren. I'm a mother of 2, and it's the best job in the world. It's just the best job. We try to get back to see them as often as possible. Volunteer work, I volunteer at the museum, the Cape Charles Museum and National, and the History Society. And it's the most rewarding job you could ever have. There's brilliant people there. I'm learning so much. I meet a ton of visitors, a ton of residents. It's just everything that I could ask for. I also volunteer at the theater, at the Palace Theater. We do set design, and if you ever see somebody moving sets in between, it's us. We're just running around moving things. I guess what I would bring to the board, I'm informed, or I think I'm relatively informed, and I care about the community. I care about the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This first question we're going to ask this evening, and if we didn't make it clear already, all questions have been provided to the candidates in advance. But this first question deals with town priorities moving forward and what each candidate would prioritize. The Cape Charles Strategic Plan includes the following 7 goals for the town in no particular priority: to retain the small town character of Cape Charles, to protect and maintain the beachfront, to protect and maintain the harbor, to promote environmental stewardship, to retain and expand businesses in a business-friendly environment, to advance a variety of housing options for younger families and workforce, and to meet our residents' expectations for town services. Recognizing that resources limit progress in all areas, which 3 goals would you prioritize as 1, 2, and 3, and why? Tara, if you would start.
Thank you again. The strategic plan has some very important goals, but I approach everything with an eye toward focusing on first things first. The town administration should wholeheartedly be focused on doing the work that it alone does. The #1 priority of the town administration to be to provide services to our community of taxpayers. Everything from ease of processes, such as permitting, to providing for our safety by recruiting and supporting our police force. I actually believe we should be expanding some of the services we offer. For example, I think it would be great to have curbside recycling service, and I would definitely champion that. The next two priorities go hand in hand. Protecting and maintaining our beachfront and our harbor. Our beachfront is one of our main attractions for residents and visitors. It's imperative that we focus on protecting it from erosion and deterioration, and we maintain it for future generations to enjoy. Likewise, our harbor is an incredible asset to this community. We need to protect it and maintain it, and we also need to be very careful in how we manage and develop it in the future.
Thank you. Joe, same question?
Thank you. So my top 3 goals would be to retain the small town character of Cape Charles, to meet the residents' expectations for town services, and to advance a variety of housing options for younger families and workforce. In the strategic plan, just these 3 goals alone cover all of these issues that are bulleted in the plan: improving sidewalks, addressing short-term rentals, fostering a safe golf cart community, preserving our small town character, developing a town-wide parking capacity inventory, and lastly, exploring the viability of workforce housing ordinances. These are all important to me, and they're presumably important to our town council, our current town council members, who listed them as top goals as well. In these words, every strategic plan I have seen since 2019 has identified a need to maintain a sense of community, maintain a small town character of Cape Charles, or foster a sense of community as the very first priorities. What are we doing to foster the small town character of Cape Charles? Right now, we have more visitors in town than we do residents during the summer. And if this is the goal, to attract more and more visitors to our town every year, then the strategic plan just does not reflect this. I do want to add that my opinion is just one of many living here in CC. It doesn't matter what I singly think. It's about what the residents collectively think is important. And that's what I plan to bring to the table. I will be the voice for the residents that elect me. I will listen to the special interest groups in town that have been included in decision-making discussions, such as Main Street, business owners, restaurant owners, real estate professionals, short-term rental owners. I promise to ensure the residents of Cape Charles that they will have a voice in the decision-making process as well.
Thank you. Andy?
All right, my 3 are, the prioritizing goals of the strategic plan are, basically we're trying to balance a bunch of stuff. So a lot of this stuff's already in the works. I just happen to be on council, so a lot of this stuff's already in the works. Mine right now, because of what I've been doing for the last 8 years, is basically the beach is going to be my #1 priority. Basically protect that and maintain it. When I first moved here, that beach didn't even exist. Half of it was water slapping up against a bulkhead. So it's going to constantly need replenishment. It's in our budget. We constantly do it. So when the Corps of Engineers go over to the harbor to keep that harbor maintained at 16 feet, they pump the sand over to the beach. So, and that harbor generates for the county, in 2021, it was about $3 million in taxes. It came to this local area. So went to school-age kids, it's helping the school system out, it's helping a whole bunch of stuff. I know it's not Cape Charles, but it's a big community. It's not just Cape Charles. So out of that revenue, I believe we were around $115,000 that we got from them. So harbor's #2, and the business-friendly environment. Can't reiterate that one enough. I moved here, there were about 5 to 6 businesses here. Now there's one place it's not vacant, it's just not a storefront. So we are at that tipping point right now where we're going to need more services from the private industry, and that just depends on whenever water gets or sewer gets taken out to 13. So, and as for the parking and all that, parking, I know that comes later, so I'll wait for that. So that's my my take on the three priorities. But they're all in the works, just so you all know.
Thank you. Clayton, top three priorities?
So I'm too fearful of Sam because I ran out of town and just did a dead stop. So hopefully I'll get to loop back to some of my professional experience and why I really want to be a part of the town and run for council. But in looking at this list, obviously the political answer is that these are all important items, and they are. When I look at the list, I think about, where can the town government and specifically the council have the most impact on the things that are listed here. To Andy's point, I think we're already doing a lot of great work in a lot of these directions. But I would have to go to number one being retaining the small town character of the town. I think that, no one would identify that as something that's not important. It may not make your top three, but, luckily we don't have anybody up here as a candidate who is promoting buying out blocks of the town and building high-rise condos along the beachfront. I mean, we have certain protections in place as a town in terms of our zoning and our historic registry that will essentially prevent that from ever happening. But it's important to me. I wouldn't just say that to get elected to council. I live in the midst of this town. I want it to be a great place to live. We may differ in terms of how we define community and how we define what that means, but I believe it's what essentially draws people here and makes them stay here, is that we have that feel, that idyllic nature that is really difficult to find in a lot of places. Secondly, I think, meeting residents' expectations for town services is huge. I think we could be a much friendlier government than we are, both the businesses and residents alike. We spend a lot of time talking about how to control tourism, but I think, and we spend a lot of time promoting tourism. We don't spend a lot of time promoting why this is a great place to live all the time. I think we could do a better job of having a friendlier government, a friendlier police force, a friendlier business environment. And meeting the expectations as we now generate more revenue from tourism, from real estate tax, with all the additional development that we're experiencing. I believe that should translate into efficiencies that should allow us to have additional services and offer programs that are available at reduced costs to those of us who live here all the time. And then thirdly, protecting and maintaining the beachfront. People talk about the four jewels of the town being the harbor, Main Street, the park, and the beach. The beach is the one thing amongst those four that has received very little attention, and yet it's probably the biggest draw that the town has. We've essentially, whether you like it or not, we've become a beach town, and it's time for us to step up and do the things that Mark did for the park and start to develop that, take care of it, and promote it, and we'll get to the specifics of that here shortly.
Thanks. Carol?
Yeah, my first one would be small town character. That's what draws the permanent residents and visitors alike. It makes us different from other beach towns. We're certainly not Virginia Beach or Ocean City. And the events that we do have depend on a strong volunteer force cooperating with town employees. And that makes it a big shared experience. And it makes me want to live here. The second would be the harbor. It's part of the town history. It's authentic. It provides jobs, recreation, and it draws visitors that don't have cars, which is a positive thing. The third one would be meeting expectations for town services. If you think about it, just like employees are employers' first customer, the residents are the town's first customer. The town services allow for the care of the environment. They allow businesses to function and flourish. They allow for the safety of the community, and they give us great quality of life. So I think town services is probably one of the most important things that we can expect. Knowing the people that provide those services also adds to the small town feel. It's sort of a nice thing to know who's out and about and who's helping us and who the helpers are, as they say in Kidville. And those are my three priorities.
Thank you.
This was a tough question for me because I don't know. I have my own priorities. I have ideas for priorities, but I think the place we begin is with what the residents want. And so going and listening to what the residents are saying that we need in town, I think is very important. seek opinions of experts, which we typically do, and then seek some common ground and collaboration. I think that by working together, we are better as a community. But with that said, I would say that the providing services to the residents is the number one priority, because you got to keep people happy that are permanent residents that are here long term. But that also applies to those that own the short-term rentals. Services apply to them as well. I would then say that I would back up, and I noticed on this list that we protect and maintain the harbor and the beachfront, and I think at that same town council meeting, they added the park, because I think those three places in town are where people go for activities. They go for potlucks, they go for concerts, they go for 4th of July celebrations and parades, and so it's important in maintaining the small town community atmosphere that we maintain the spaces for that to happen as well. And I think small town community is atmosphere, I would add the word vibrant, small town community, and to the list, or to that description. But those would be the three that I would list.
Thank you. Ed?
Well, I'm sure everybody's bored of hearing our opinions up here. But to pick 3 out of these 7 or 8 listed is kind of hard, because they're all important. The first one I have to pick is to protect our beachfront. I mean, that's one of the jewels of the town, and we all use it, go there, young, old, black, white, brown. Number 2, I would like to retain the small town character. This is who we are. This is our identity. This is where we have our quality of life in this small town. It's very important to preserve it for future generations and for us in this time. Third one would be housing. I think we need to advance younger families to move here, or else we won't exist. And I think we need workforce housing. I know the town's working on these areas, but they're going to need help with state, county, and federal money, because it's not easy. We need it for our businesses. There's not enough workers in town. And that's my top 3.
Thanks, Ed. Martin, your top 3 priorities?
Well, the first priority, I would think, is to retain and expand businesses in a business-friendly environment. Our businesses are necessary in Cape Charles. I think if we just grow them differently and provide and give them more support, that our town can expand in such a way that would take off. I think the next one is to advance housing options for younger families. Younger families, I believe, would move here if we just kind of like lower our taxes a little bit and make things viable for them, and make it so that the income is good for them. I think the last one is I would like to meet our residents and expectations of town services. I think our citizens notes on this, but I don't remember what my notes are, and I'm kind of like fumbling through this, but I know what I wanted to say, but my notes are exactly hits the point, but I can't remember what my notes are. So I'm just going to pass, and because what I'm going to do anyway is go from door to door and talk to our residents about what their needs are and what their wants are, because I'm not here for myself. I think every member that's on this board is here because they want to help serve the community, and that's what my whole goal is to help serve the community, help promote Cape Charles into a better town and a friendlier town.
Thank you. Let's move on to everyone's favorite topic, short-term rentals.
Yeah, here we go.
For this question, we'll start with Ed, and then we'll go to Mark and kind of work backwards. The impact of short-term rentals on the town of Cape Charles has been a major topic of discussion over the past year. In November 2023, the town's Committee on Short-Term Rentals recommended that the town place a limit on the number of short-term rentals in residential areas. The town council ultimately did not take that recommendation. Where do you come down on that discussion?
Do I have to answer that?
You've got 2 minutes.
Ed, Ed, bring the microphone. They can't hear you.
First of all, I'm not against short-term rentals. I want to say that right up front. The meeting we had in April was a very contentious meeting. It seemed to give me the impression it was us against them. So I want to come down. I believe in short-term rentals. I think they're good for the town. It's a revenue source. And, you know, people have the right to rent out their property. However, I think there should be a balance. And I don't think the town council proved that with what they're proposing. They seem to put no cap, no limit, and they didn't address the area of density. Some of these streets in town have 33 rentals in one street. How would you like to feel if you lived next to all your neighbors were short-term rentals? Every week you have a new neighbor. I have it next to my house. I have short-term rentals. And I think the town missed the boat on that. I think town should have took a second look at that and really maybe did something with the density. As far as all the other things that they passed, I think they're good. I think Andy proposed a two-person per bedroom limit. I'm not sure how that's going to be enforced, but that's another issue. They didn't address the parking issue. They kicked the can down the road again. You know, Andy's, this issue has been on the books for at least 7 years. It took the town council almost 7 years to get there where they are now. And Andy was here for 8 years, and I blame him for part of it. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel. What's real is real. If it's true, it's true. So that's where I see it.
Mark?
Yes, full disclosure, for a number of years, my home at 117 Strawberry Street, right behind the post office, was a weekly rental. And it was a weekly rental during the summer because I had 2 kids in college, and that was the only way that I could keep the house and have them in college. So I'm a firm believer that people should be able to rent short-term. However, that said, I don't believe in caps on short-term rentals. What I do believe is density caps based upon certain blocks. I mean, no block should have a majority of weekly rentals on it. I think it should be permanent residents, personally. But I don't think there ought to be a cap on all weekly rentals. I do think there ought to be a cap based on density. But I think perhaps the two most or more important issues that we face with the complaints and discussions about weekly rentals, they are good for the community. I mean, I came in 1996, about half of the storefronts were boarded up or at least had dust over the windows because no business was buying it. Short-term renters come in and spend a lot of money on vacation. I do, when I'm a short-term renter someplace. Other people do as well. So I think we need to accommodate that. But I think that there should be restrictions on occupancy. And if we have to, we need to hire another person, go around and check occupancy. It makes sense to have 2 people per bedroom, kids included in that number. I think we ought to establish a prohibition against parking in the front yard. You go by and you see golf carts and cars parking in people's front yards. I think it doesn't add to the character of the community. And finally, I think that the idea of one committed parking space in front of each home for the homeowner makes sense to me as well. Identifying it by the number, identifying it, explaining what people it means, but everyone that lives here permanently should be able to park in front of their home where they live.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol?
I did a lot of thinking about short-term rentals. The potential for limiting them gave me a lot to think about. It seems like it's an easy solution to regulate the density. But when you start thinking about it, it seems really capricious to put a limit. Your options with your property and your property value could be changed by the actions of all the other people on your block, your neighbors. You don't have any control over who decides. The person first to the bench who picks the short-term rental is the person that gets it. And that just doesn't seem fair. It doesn't make any sense to me. A quick scenario would be, let's say I pass away. It's not in my plans, but if I pass away, my kids would be forced to sell the house unless they had the option of short-term rentaling it. They cannot afford the upkeep on those old houses, the taxes, and the insurance on them. I mean, and that, that's, sort of my legacy. So anyway, I think that that kind of limit, a density limit, that's not a good idea, but I'm not sure what the actual answer is. And I think that we still have a lot of work to do on what that answer is. We have to help with the quality of life. I think that we have to make a regulation that's fair to all property owners. Those the ones that were first to rent, and then the ones that potentially need to rent in the future for some unknown reason. I also want to say that all my short-term rental neighbors, which I have a lot of, are all my neighbors. I still know them. I get to know them. So if something happens in their houses that I don't like, I can call them up. They're all responsible citizens. They all would rather live here than rent their houses out. I mean, the whole block pretty much. But because of other situations, they are short-term rental people. And so I think that that's important too, to realize that they're citizens too. They just don't have the ability to live here yet. And that's something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Clayton, 2 minutes.
So just to clarify, you're saying that there are people renting houses here in Cape Charles?
I'm not saying anything. I'm just asking questions.
So, obviously I've been very vocal about this. I was very concerned. I live here too. I want to maintain the charm, the idyllic character, like I said before. I was very concerned with the specific recommendations that were coming out of the committee, the ad hoc committee that we had kind of put together. I felt like they didn't do anything to address the real issues, the problems, the parking, the trash, the noise, the behavior-related things that first brought this to the forefront. And I felt like putting an arbitrary cap did nothing but maintain the status quo. I felt personally like part of the reason I'm drawn to live here is because someday my wife and I might want to say, hey, we're going to Portugal for 6 weeks. I want to be able to rent my house out and largely subsidize the cost of that trip. Or I've used your example before. If ever something happened to me, I know my boys wouldn't want to see that house go. They've grown up there. I will say I love this conversation up to number 4. We'll see what you say. But this, to Ed's point, is very different than the tone and the atmosphere that we had at our town hall. And these are the kind of conversations we need to have, continue to have as a town, to be balanced and open to opposing ideas and to be able to communicate with each other and express our concerns and not vilify one another because, to earlier points, the people who rent here these are different STR rentals than you see in big cities. This isn't BlackRock with a real estate investment trust gobbling up lots in Cape Charles because it's profitable. And they're not displacing, sadly, young families. It's just giving people who love it here, who've invested in the place, an opportunity to offset some of the expense historically in buying homes that were uninhabitable. Or building new with today's construction costs and trying to offset some of that expense on the short term. Most of the people that you talk to who rent, they view themselves here. Whether that happens or not, they view themselves getting here at some point. They play an instrumental role in the businesses. They've allowed kids who've grown up here now to stay here. They spend differently than each one of us do as permanent residents. I can't afford to go to the distillery for a cocktail. I don't buy much candy or popcorn, but I'm glad those businesses are there because we've changed the way we do commerce. And we're not going to replace the businesses we have here right now, I think, with butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers. I mean, it's a new world out there. So I love the conversation, and I hope it continues as a dialogue like that.
Thank you. Andy?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So, yeah, I was on council. I voted not to cap it. Parking, we've been working on parking forever. We have a parking lot in the municipal lot that no one uses. We've been addressing parking because we don't have property to do it. I'm probably going to bring up in a later meeting to resurrect the library parking lot. If it's only 20 to 30 spots, it's just extra parking spots that we might definitely need for the historic downtown. That's one little bump that we can tide over until we get some more property. We don't have property to do the parking. But the short-term rentals, most of you wouldn't be here if we didn't have short-term rentals. I can tell you that right now. Because I moved here in, like I said, 2004. My neighbor There was no neighbor. I had anybody living there. It was vacant for 10 years. I moved over to the Fairways. For 7 years, I lived in the Fairways. I was the only one in my condo unit. I had 6 visitors, or 5 visitors, every week. It was great. I got to talk to people. It didn't matter if they weren't my neighbors. I had plenty of friends in the neighborhood that had a sense of community everywhere. Not only here, but we have these concerts in the park every week. That came about from some old school stuff that we used to do back in the day, Praising the Sun, harbor parties. Same concept, different location. So a sense of community has always been the key part because it's still here. I bought a house on a whim, just like you did 21 years ago. A lot of people have done that here. I've known a lot of people that still come here on weekly rentals, same time, every year, same time. And they're just as much part of this community as anybody else. So if it wasn't for short-term rentals, half this place wouldn't be here. It wouldn't have been pushed that way. So that's my take on short-term rentals.
Thank you, Andy. Joe?
So what I was going to talk to was mostly what Ed talked to, so I won't repeat things, and Mark as well. One thing I want to expand upon, and I have it in another section, so I have to cross it out over there. Healing in the community. Since we moved here, it just seems like the community has been pitted one against the other. I don't know how it happened. You're either pro-business, you're pro-resident. On every single committee that's been formed to talk about the beachfront, to talk about STRs, I have been told specifically that there will be no resident permitted to sit on any of those ad hoc committees. The Short-Term Rental Association sits on those committees. The Main Street sits on those committees. There's no representation for residents to have any input. And I think that that's what causes the disconnect. There's just a feeling that it's one versus the other. I don't even know who the other side is. I don't even know what it is. But I think that that's got to stop. And I think when you work together, we're probably all much closer than we think we are. I'll tell you, working at the museum, you talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of visitors. And a lot of visitors will say to me specifically, where is everybody? Especially in the early season, like May and June. There is nobody here because nobody lives here anymore. I talked to a short-term rental, a property owner, and she rents her place out. And I said, what is your opinion on caps? And she said, what is the percentage right now? I said, well, that's another story. I think it's around 40. I said, what if that went to 90? And she said, oh, we can't have that. And I said, why? And she says, because then there would be nobody here. And that's the thing, there'll be nobody here. Nobody supports the businesses in the winter. When we moved in, we had neighbors all around us. We have not one neighbor left on all 4 corners, none. Our block unfortunately suffers from the parking, but that's another question. Kind of related, maybe not directly, but getting back to the data, I've asked our town manager for data, and we're just not getting it. I can't get it. He's timely. He just doesn't get it. We need that. So I think transparency is another issue that I would like to pursue as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Tara?
I live here. My whole family does. I'm going to say I unequivocally support the economy of Cape Charles. The backbone of our economy is tourism, and short-term rentals play a pivotal role in that economy. I will not support any ordinances that aim to curb or diminish the economic vitality of this community. The impact of doing something like that would cause our businesses to wither on the vine, our town budget to suffer, and for all of us to lose property value. I don't want to see Cape Charles return to an era of boarded up homes and shuttered businesses. What I will support, however, are ordinances aimed at curtailing the nuisance issues inherent in being a short-term beach resort community. Let's manage our parking problems. Let's come up with some creative solutions, and we'll talk about that and then after the break. Let's pass some meaningful regulations to curb noise issues and put some teeth into those regulations. And while we're at it, let's manage the crazy golf cart drivers. They're a tragedy waiting to happen, and we need to make sure we don't let that happen. I think everyone's touched on this a little bit, but something I think about often is we need to remember that today's short-term visitors and short-term homeowners are tomorrow's long-term neighbors and friends. Everything that we do to resolve these problems needs to be looked at through that lens. Thank you.
Thank you. Martin?
Well, short-term rentals. I wouldn't know anything about short-term rental. I am a citizen that's been here all my life, born and raised here, but I see both sides of it. I see where if you're not born and raised in Cape Charles, you probably were a short-term rental at one point. So therefore, I have nothing against short-term rentals, but I do have friends, and my friends would like to limit short-term rentals, and I can understand why. Because at some point, we have short-term rentals that come, and they do drive at excessive speeds in their golf carts, and they flaunt themselves by first thing they say is, well, I come here to spend money. Well, that's nice that you come here to spend money, but you can do it with class and dignity. So I would like to, yes, limit short-term rentals, and I know there are a bunch of people that do want to limit short-term rentals. And I have other things that I would like to say about the short-term rental, but I'm going to leave it at that for right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One more question. Kind of making pretty good progress here. How about we go one more question, then we'll take a brief break. The third question, adjacent to the short-term rental discussion we just had, on parking. Parking within the town has been an area of ongoing discussion, including at recent town council meetings where the need for a townwide comprehensive parking plan was proposed. Do you believe that the town has a parking problem? If you do, please describe the problem and how the town can best address it. Start with Martin this time.
Okay, well, I've understood where there was a resident, I think Mrs. Dutton. She's a very nice lady, her and her husband. They had a very nice house, and they came home to park, and I heard that there were like 4 or 5 cars parked in front of their home, and they couldn't park. So my thing is, I would like to put their house number out in front of their curb, and with that house number, just I guess a thing of respect, because VDOT or no one like that is going to control it, but just a respect thing that this is this person's home, and that you wouldn't park your car in front of someone else's home. So out of a respect thing, that 533 or whatever it is that their home is, that car, the short-term rental wouldn't park in front of their home like that. I think that would kind of like eliminate people parking in front of other people's homes.
Okay. Tara?
I absolutely believe there's a parking issue. I come here in the summer and I can't find a parking space either. But I'm not a downtown resident, and I hear you. It's a concern that's been voiced over and over again. To find parking in front of your home is difficult. I think an effective town council needs to listen to those concerns and start to put together actionable plans to solving those issues. There are some long-term solutions in the works. I'm glad to hear that the harbor build-out plan and the plans for the railroad space are going to include, hopefully, I would hope, some parking solutions for the town. But those are not going to solve our immediate problems. I think we need to be creative. The town should look at turning its current lots behind the library into attractive parking lots for overflow parking. And I think they should consider leasing undeveloped land in the town and making parking throughout the town available to the residents and our visitors. I'm, again, excited that there's a long-term plan, but we need things done immediately because we know that long-term plans are going to take long-term planning.
So I agree with Tara. Parking is an issue on a lot of blocks in the historic district. There's a lot of blocks that are not affected. If you have driveways, if you have bigger frontages, if you know, for whatever reason, it may not be a problem. But in the downtown, it's definitely a problem. For that reason, back in April, as an interim solution, I had suggested to the town council that we limit the occupancy on a house based on how many parking spots that STR had. So for instance, you have 2 spots out in front on your curb, presumably in 40 feet. Most of your STRs have 2 parking spots in the back that have been created. You have 4 parking spots, 2 people parking spot, that's 8 people. And in a single family home that's this dense in this community, 8 people is very generous. And you would not have, that would solve the noise, that would solve the trash, that would solve the parking. Maybe it's just temporary until something more long-term would be able to be put in place. But when you have one house coming in with 12, 13, 15 people, 2 golf carts, 6 cars, a boat, there's no place for these to go, and they definitely park all along your street frontage. At a meeting that was held back in the spring, one of the solutions that was voiced was just park on another block and walk. If you have groceries or if you're somebody that can't walk, that is not a solution. That's like kind of insulting. So I stand by my original suggestion. I think it would work. As far as I understand, our town manager thought it would work. And it would just be interim. It would just be something, maybe it's got to be modified. I don't know. But, you know, I think that there's some things that can be done and should be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy?
All right, parking. Yeah, there's, in the historic district neighborhoods, there are definitely specific areas that do have spotty parking for those said reasons. The main parking down in the business district, it's just packed. So part of the thing is we have to find a way to either increase parking spaces. We can't, you know, the reverse, that's done. That's never going to change because we'll end up losing 27 spots that we got back with 2014, I think it was. So it's been around a long time. With the beach master plan, they're going to increase quite a number of parking spots up there, including golf carts. So hopefully that'll alleviate some of the spillover into the areas of Harbor and some of the side streets, Caswell, Mason, Monroe, Jefferson. So hopefully it'll kill some of those overflow problems. So, but that's all this stuff's in the process. So we've really have been working on this for a long time, as Ed points out. But we've got solutions that have been implemented, and we just have, you know, when you have a lot of day trippers coming over, you got issues. So, and just think once that beach is finished, if we go and do that and get that parking and all that, it's going to bring more people. So it's just things you got to look after. Right now, we don't own the roads. VDOT owns the roads. We can deal with them. I don't know what we can do. We might have to go do the same thing we did for boats and trailers and go to the General Assembly and see if we can get them to somehow change the parking structure. But that's an uphill battle trying to do that. I mean, it took us 5, 6 years to do the boat and trailer stuff. You know, we can even go back to the drawing board on that and put that down to 24 hours instead of 48 hours. But, I mean, it's growing pains. We have growing pains. And depending upon what happens over in the railroad property, we don't know yet. And let's say hypothetically, if the town gets it, yeah, I'm sure we'll put some parking over there. But we don't know yet. It's one of those things that we've got to deal with the issues we have at hand. And, you know, either trying to expand little small spots behind the library to gain 20 or 30 more parking spots. I don't think it's not going to solve the problem. Definitely not. So we do have to have a strategic plan.
Thank you. Clayton, parking?
I mean, I would say that at certain times and in certain places, we have a parking problem. Whether we have one today or not, we're going to have one. If you filled this town up with full-time residents, you'd have a disastrous parking problem. I hate how STRs are the source of all evil in the house. I have 7 cars. I had 7 cars at my house last weekend. Don't have 7 cars. I'd live on the water somewhere near Marty if I did, but you know, I'm a big violator. Like if you were a family living in town and you had teenage kids, most likely they might have cars and their friends would come over. I imagine if you live in a 2-block radius of this building tonight, you're feeling some parking strain. Because not everybody, some, but not everybody walked here tonight. I get it. My mother is a prime example of somebody who doesn't have a parking spot, who doesn't have alley access. She used to have a beautiful place to park until she let me build a house on the lot next door with her garage on it, but that was her mistake. You know, we all do have to realize at some level that we moved to a densely populated or densely laid out area where parking was going to be a challenge, like people do in any kind of semi-urban environment. There's not a house in Bay Creek that doesn't have a place to park, if not a garage, even condos. So that's just not what this place was designed for originally. I mean, look at how many 4-foot wide aprons there are that were designed for horse and buggies back in the day. I mean, this was way before we knew there was going to be stretch pickups and SUVs that take up a lot more room. But the good news on this issue is that we haven't done one thing yet. We'll talk about the beach plan, which will alleviate a little parking. I mean, it starts at the beach and it starts at Main Street in some instances where when beach parking fills, then they park in our block on the first block, and then I may be forced to park in the next one, and that domino effect continues through the town. And then the same thing happens from Mason Avenue inward. We have almost 1,000 inspected golf carts in this town. We've yet to designate one golf cart parking area in this town. I mean, you can fit 4 golf carts into one spot as opposed to putting them in regular parallel spots. I'll still continue to ask this question, even though everybody throws their hands up, and I'll finish up. The back-end parking just makes it messy on Mason. I'd love to fix that. I know VDOT won't let us, but then why is every highway road stop that's engineered, managed, and run by VDOT have front pull-in angle parking with people coming off at highway speeds into it?
Width of the road.
Widen the road.
Jason, I don't know the term.
I don't know.
It's the width of the road, that's the problem.
All right, fair enough. There's always answers.
That's what
Thank you.
That's what the answer was.
Thank you. Carol?
Yes, there's a parking problem. It does seem a little bit seasonal, and it can be divided into residential and commercial. I think the commercial lot, just as a temporary fix, needs better access, it needs better signage, needs better lighting. We really have to be just forward-thinking to a more permanent solution. If it's not part of the railroad property or part of the harbor, then it just, you know, that's got to be a big emphasis on those 2 properties. On residential, well, a lot of smart people here have tried to find ways of fixing it, but I was thinking of a town commuter lot where if you had an STR, you had 2 town permits for cars, and any excess cars would have to park at a town lot. Now, I don't know where that town lot would be, but that's something to be determined. But then you could charge for that town lot. And that would give us a little more revenue, it'd give us a little more control on the streets, make people feel a little bit better about the situation until some big solutions are found. Thank you.
I'm going to echo some of the same things that my fellow candidates have said. I did go online the last couple of days and spent some time on the National League of Cities site. And it's amazing the number of manuals they have and suggestions they have on short-term rentals, on parking issues, if you go and spend a little time doodling around on those. And I think some of those solutions would apply to us and for us. But as far as parking, yes, there's a problem at times in certain areas, and it needs to be resolved. The idea of the commuter lot or the short-term rental lot makes sense to me. I've lived in several communities, 3, 4 that I know, well, 4 different ones that I've lived in, that had restrictions on the number of cars that can be parked based upon the house. And in each of those communities, 2 permanent permits for whoever you want to give the permanent permits to, and 2 guest permits that had to be shown on the dashboard. But I think the idea of having that overflow lot is even a better idea. The idea of establishing parking places where golf carts are allowed as opposed to cars also makes total sense to me, because so many people zip around in golf carts, and their place to park is taking up a full parking place. So we could expand our number of parking spaces, our places to park, if we allowed for golf carts to fill some of those spaces. Part of the question was, would I support a limit on the number of cars per short-term rental? Only if the same limit applied to permanent residents, because otherwise you're going to have crowded streets and not unable to park. So I think we've got to be fair in whatever we pass for short-term rentals as well as permanent residents.
So you think short-term rentals should have a preference over permanent residents?
Nope. Nope, I think a permanent.
It was just a side question. I asked if he thought short-term renters had the same, what is it?
You said preference.
Same preference as permanent residents.
It's kind of like a debate.
Well, anyhow, let me get back to this question. The question again, the town council's pushed this can about parking down the road again. About 7 years, 8 years, it's been talked about. No progress has been made. They opened up, they rented the leased property from Canoni, the railroad property, and they used that as a municipal lot. It's been pretty much a total failure. I don't know why. They don't promote it. There's no signs. So part of it's council's fault. You know, we do have a problem, but it's only at times, like when we have concerts, when we have the 4th of July activities. We need to do some common sense plans. Let the people who have alleyways in the back, let them utilize those alleys. Let the town help them get to park some cars back there. Short-term rentals should ask their future tenants to limit the number of cars that they bring into town. I mean, these are easy things to ask. And I think most people will accommodate them. We've limited the number of people per bedroom. Let's limit the number of cars coming to the rental. I hope we can find a lot and maybe have a lot where we can bring the commuter or the extra cars from renters to the lot. I don't know where that lot is. There's hardly any town property left, if any. Maybe they can rent from Bay Creek. Maybe they can lease again from Canoni. But I think Canoni has their own problems. That may not be able to lease anything right now. So yes, we do have a problem. It's not all the time. So I don't know how council's going to figure it out. If anybody else has some ideas, I'm sure they're welcome. You're welcome at the county council meetings.
Thank you. We have one more prepared question before we get into that. Let's take a brief 5-minute break. If anyone in the audience would like to submit questions, you should have already done so, as Sam just said, but you can hand them to Sam, and we will go through as many as we can.
All right. First off, y'all been a great audience. You're very respectful to everybody, very quiet, so the candidates have been able to let us know what they think. We have one more prepared question, and then I think we've pulled 3 questions from those that were submitted. We're doing really good on time, and if we can get everybody out of here a little early, that'd be great. We did ask the candidates if they could, if we finished early, if they could hang around for a few minutes if you wanted to talk to them individually. So we'll try to use that time as well.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, everybody. I have every intention of getting out of here before 9 o'clock. So, as Sam said, we have one more prepared question, and then we have a few questions from the audience. This next question is on the beach. The town recently posted for public comment a draft master plan for the beachfront. Of the various recommendations, what recommendation should be given the highest priority and why? Is there any specific recommendation that gives you concern? Please explain. We're going to begin with Mark and then on to Carol.
Thank you. I think, first of all, in thinking about our friends and neighbors that live closest to the beach, I think parking is particularly a problem for those who live there on Bay Avenue and on the blocks close to the beach. So I think the parking resolution could be a high priority for the master plan. In talking with several folks recently about the master plan as presented, people were saying it's too much, it's not who we are, it's treating us like a big city, whatever. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's a long-term plan. And when we started in 2001 with the master plan for Central Park, it took 15 years, actually 10 years to get the basics down, but another 5 or 6 years to get most of the plan in place. It's a long-term process. But without a master plan, you don't know kind of where you're going. So I liked it. It looks pretty cool, to be real honest. I applaud those who participate in that effort, who are on the committees, who provided input. And it's just, I particularly heard positive comments from vendors who were concerned about their process of finding a place down at the beach and how early they had to reserve it, and different things they had to go through. So dedicated vendor parking, vendor spaces is wonderful. The volleyball, permanent volleyball courts are great. And the golf cart parking, as I mentioned earlier, I think is a big plus for the beachfront plan overall. I think the beachfront master plan does perpetuate spaces for us to have gatherings, social gatherings, which creates that and perpetuates that sense of community. We see the different nodes that they have designed as places for different events to happen and for different gatherings to occur. So overall, I think it's a good plan.
Thank you, Mark. Any concerns on the plan?
The only concern is it's going to take a while and we're going to have to be patient.
Okay.
Come up with the money over several years to implement it.
Thank you. Just a reminder, please pull your microphones a little bit closer if you can. Some of the individuals in the back are having a difficult time hearing. Carol, same question on the beach?
Yeah, I think the beach plan, the number one focus should be access and safety. I think that parking, crosswalks, handicap parking, beach mats, and those silly hills down to the parking and those treacherous steps really have to be addressed as our first thing. I don't know why we haven't, why somebody hasn't sued the town on those. It's pretty crazy. And the next thing would be a new bathroom and changing room. The ones we have are totally inadequate. I know that any businesses in town get a lot of people changing in their bathrooms, which just makes a mess. And then the last one would be to up, and this isn't on the beach plan, but I think it's the most important thing, is to up town services to the beach. I think really, before we do a whole lot more, we really have to, and they've stepped up this year quite a bit, but still trash pickup, safety, lighting, at the parking, and just taking care of what we have already would be a really good step forward.
Thank you. Clayton?
I think it's a pretty extensive plan. I think we certainly got our money's worth from the consultants that we hired to do that. It certainly checks all the boxes of all the things that we communicated to them that were important. The feedback that I've gotten, to Mark's point, is that, it seems a little grandiose, but I think a lot of that is just, it's a pretty slick presentation, the software that they use to lay it all out. It was a frustrating thing to even get to the point where you can figure out how to look at it. I think if you plugged today's park, which is fantastic, into that same software program, it would look over the top. It's like, whoa, you got a concert and shade areas and an adult cornhole area, you've got a fountain, a memorial wall. It would seem like, whoa, that's a lot going on. We just need a little park in the middle of town. So I love it. I mean, I love the parking. It goes back to our earlier conversations. For the first time, we'd have some dedicated golf cart parking. It would double more than double the parking capacity along the beachfront. Importantly, addresses the dune management, increases the size of the beach, but is designed with the ability for the town to upkeep that in mind. If you live in a beachfront home or on Bay Avenue, I mean, it's like shoveling snow out there at times. I mean, that sand has no resistance, and the retention wall with the maintenance path so that the sand could be collected and redistributed back where it belongs, I think is a fantastic part of the plan. Obviously, restrooms, if I'm picking 3 off the top, those would be my 3. But, you know, this isn't a single stroke check we're gonna write to make this happen. It's gonna be a multi-year, generational project, and some of the things that happen first could potentially not be in our order of priority based on grant monies that become available for those phases. And what I really like about this plan is that the consultants who put it together have very working knowledge of monies that are available and designed the plan with those in mind. Oftentimes you come up with this plan and you go out to find a grant for it and find out that it falls just short of the requirements necessary to acquire those funds. So, you know, the thing that concerns me about it, I don't know, it would just be the financial piece of it. But I don't think we're going to do it if it means it all comes out of our pockets and risks other things that we view as priorities in the town either. But yeah, I like it.
Thank you. Andy?
I like it too. It's part of the master plan for our walking trails that we started with the park. So this is just going to be another phase of it, but there's a little added benefit to the beach. You know, we got the beach now. So with that said, I mean, the extra bathrooms are going to be key. The ADA compliant mats that will allow people to get out that are handicapped or have difficult time walking in sand will make it a lot better. My suggestion would be put them on both ends, not just on the one side. And I'm sure we're going to have more than just the two. You know, along with, you know, when you have small kids and you're getting them off the beach, you just need to be hosed off. So, you know, more showers, I know they're in the plans. Hopefully there's, you know, the foot washers will be there. I agree with Carol on those steps. They are kind of murderous because they're not really compliant to like the building code heights these days. So hopefully those will go away and we'll just have ramps or low level type stuff, which they do. I can't remember what they had in those little bump out areas. I do think one of the things, the pavilion smack in the middle of the beach might be a tad bit overreach. The only reason I say that is because I'd rather keep the music and all that stuff at the park and leave the beach for the beach. I don't think we need to have entertainment down there, but the gathering spots, perfect. I'd rather see more gathering spots than another pergola.
Thanks, Sandy. Joe?
When I first reviewed the plan, I thought it was a little grandiose. Our beach will lose that small town vibe that we have. That said, there are some aspects of the plan that I like. I like the bathrooms on the other end, and I assume there'll be water fountains in between. And that's really good. I think that without having a construction cost, it's impossible to review this plan. You absolutely need a cost. We need to know if we're buying an Alfa Romeo or a Volkswagen. So I really, I would urge our town officials to provide some kind of cost that the consultant provided so that we can at least review it fairly. One of the things I wanted to bring up in the strategic plan, when it talks about the beachfront bullet says that the importance of the beach, what we need to do is preserve and maintain the beachfront. And I think that that's what we should be doing. I looked at those breakwaters that are extended, and I know we need some kind of erosion control, but 65% plus or minus of our beachfront, the length of our beachfront, will be riprap bulkheads. That's it. They're being extended so far. And I don't know if there's a way to balance that with the dunes. I don't know. I would have to defer to the experts. But it just seems like it's very, very long. You're just looking at riprap when you look at the beach. I guess other questions that I have, the 162 more parking spaces, while that's wonderful, it doesn't help the people in town. Nobody's going to be overflow parking from the 600 block of Tazewell down onto Washington and Bay. So if it's for the beach, can our beach absorb 162 more families? Is that what the parking is for, or is it for people to park that couldn't otherwise go to town? I don't know. I think if we had a little beach report, it would be kind of nice. Will tourists be charged for any of these amenities, or will taxpayers foot the bill for the construction and all the upkeep and the maintenance? Another thought I had is, where's the Neptune and Dolphin statuaries? I just didn't see them. I didn't see them. The shrubs, who maintains them? 10-foot parking spaces for the golf carts, that won't accommodate the double bench golf carts that are common with renters. So the roadway will have to be widened slightly.
Tara?
I've reviewed the beach master plan, and it's obvious that a lot of time and energy went into its development. I think it's a lovely plan for California, the shore towns of New York and New Jersey. My husband's from New Jersey, so I can say that, and even Delaware. I think if we implement all that this plan calls for, the impact would be to erode our small town quaintness and charm of our beachfront. I actually think it would turn us into a smaller version of Virginia Beach, and I don't advocate for that. As we look to implement a plan for the future for our beach, I think we need to be focused on some key essentials. We need bathrooms. We shouldn't be destroying the beauty of our beaches with porta potties at the entrance to our beach. We need access points. We need to make sure that everyone, no matter their ability, can enjoy our beach and access it. We need showers and foot washing stations. Those are easy and they're convenient for everyone, visitors and residents. And I think most importantly, we need to focus on shoring up and protecting our dunes and our sandy beaches. That's the extent of what I think a master plan should entail, not something that is going to change the quality and vibe of our beach that we all love and enjoy.
Thank you.
I agree, 100%. Yeah. Being a resident of Cape Charles, growing up here, looking at that beach, the only thing you really need to do is put bathrooms at both ends and shower stalls at both ends and keep the beauty that is Cape Charles right there. That's it for me. Just keep the beauty of Cape Charles that is right there. That's the beach that I used to get in shape for football season on. That's my beach. That's all I got to put out.
Ed?
I agree with Tara from mostly what Tara recommended. You got to realize this was a man-made beach. There was no dunes. So, but this does not preserve the town character, and that's what we're supposed to be doing here. Preserving the small town character of Cape Charles is one of our missions. I mean, that preserves our quality of life. This project is grandiose, over the top, Virginia Beach, you know, California style. I mean, some of the things are great. Replenishing, knocking some of the dunes down because they have to replenish the beach. Those dunes will come back eventually because that's the way the wind blows, okay? The breakwaters probably have to be fixed and extended. The roadway, can you imagine if VDOT gets down there and starts working? Because look what happened on Peach Street, how many months of delays it took. You know what it'd be like down there? It'll take years just for them to get the roadway straightened out. And you're going to do this, you know, when summer rolls around. Some of it is good. We need the showers. We need the bathrooms. We need some fountains. We need some spots for food trucks. But this plan, I think, is over the top. Even if the money does come in from some grants and stuff, I think it's just too grandiose. The amphitheater and pavilion at Monroe Street is way over the top. You're putting it right at the entrance of the worst possible town street. You can't even get 2 cars down that road, and they want to have a straight shot to the park. I mean, it just makes no sense to me. And so that's where I come down on it.
Thank you. That concludes our prepared questions. For this next segment, we're going to shift to some of the questions we received from the audience. We've selected 2 questions. Some of these themes came up multiple times. This first one is on sidewalks, and like a few of the questions I've already asked, I asked this exact same question 2 years ago, for whatever that's worth. We'll start with Joe on this and go to Andy. The question is pertaining to the sidewalks throughout the historic district, or in some instances, and more problematic, the lack of sidewalks in front of some homes. Do you feel that sidewalks are necessary all over the town, so that tourists, locals, whoever it might be, will not have to walk in the street in certain areas of the town? Currently, it's kind of here and there, depending on where you're at. Joe, if you want to start.
Yeah, I definitely feel that continuous sidewalks are important. There's actually areas where trees have been planted in the space that a sidewalk would be, and I just don't understand how that's allowed. But there's so many streets where, and especially Fig, where you have to walk in the street instead of on a sidewalk, and how that's permitted. I know I've been told that it's VDOT right of way, that you have to get approval from them. But I didn't understand the beachfront the beachfront plan has 20-foot sidewalks along the boardwalk. It's existing 10. If we took that extra 10 feet, the money from that, and put it towards sidewalks that are continuous through town, I just think that would serve visitors and it would serve locals. I mean, it's a walkable town, and we should have continuous sidewalks.
Thank you. Andy?
Hi, Diane.
That's what I was going to say.
It's a subject that comes up. We talk about sidewalks all the time. We have been working, trying to get the zoning changed to, when new houses are built, to get sidewalks built with the homes. Right? Our prior zoning didn't have it. So, and these are all on private land and VDOT right of way. So it's a challenge to go through and do it, but we have it on our I'm trying to think of the name.
Priority?
No, it's basically it's part of our strategic expenditures that we have, that we allot certain amounts for certain things, so like buildings, sidewalks, and all that. We have some earmarked in there, but it's still out because we still have to get a lot of the legwork done to get some of this stuff done. So, dealing with VDOT's a pain in the ass. Excuse my French, but they are. And then dealing with people that own a house and wanting one or not wanting one. So we've got to get clarification from the private resident too. So it's a complicated issue. It really is. But I do think we should have sidewalks throughout the town. It's just getting them is not easy.
Thank you. Clayton, we're 46 years into this question, per my notes.
So I rambled on too much about my history in the town to kind of talk about my experiences here in the town, but I with Diane, was on the early formation of the Civic League, Historic District Civic League itself, and one of our priorities was to identify low-hanging fruit, making the town more walkable and trying to do what we could to ensure that happens. My wife and I walk our dog every day around the town. Well, she walks the dog, I pick up trash. But it's awkward. You're walking down the sidewalk, suddenly you're in someone's front yard, and there's some people who view it as their front yard and some people who are cool with it. But absolutely, it should be something we address. I thought we actually did require new construction to put a sidewalk in now. Is that not the case?
Well, the zoning hasn't been completely,
I mean, it seems like the people who are building new construction within the historic district are doing
Yeah,
it. So whether they're required to or just being,
they're getting nudged.
they're getting nudged, either way, win-win. But I would love to see the town at a minimum on their own property, make sure that their sidewalks are complete and serviceable. I mean, baby steps. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's an important piece. It's a safety piece. It's an enjoyability piece, and it should be a priority.
Thank you. Carol?
Probably not more that could be said about sidewalks, except I'm the one that walks the 3 dogs on the sidewalk. And Diane and I have probably a competition on who walks the town the most. Yes, it's very important. It's probably a big priority, and I thought maybe it would be part of that trails, the town trails thing, but I guess that didn't sort of, it didn't attach to that, unfortunately. But
It's in different sections, the
Yeah.
town, so it's going around, the master trail plan goes around the circumference of the town.
right, but still I think they're still missing parts, yeah.
It's probably, I don't know where that falls in the plan number,
yeah.
but that's part of
But
it.
Do you have any,
Yes,
anything? Okay.
sidewalks are important, very
Okay.
important.
Mark, anything to add?
Certainly, sidewalks are certainly as important as many other things in our community, particularly those areas where they have historically not been built, not been paid for by the town. I think when you fill those in, I think that ought to be a top priority. Someone mentioned the community trail. A number of years ago, maybe 2002, we wrote the first grant that gave us the money and the impetus to get additional grants to finish Central Park. And the initial grant was a community trails grant. And the only rule was you couldn't have a circular walkway inside a park that was prohibited by the grant. So we simply took it up Beach Street, took it down Beach Street, took it over Washington. And then the other sections were added later. So there's grant money out there if we're just creative and thinking about it. Because who would have thought that a Victorian fountain would have been included in a community walking trail grant? But it was, because we asked for it, and the money was there somewhere. Don't ask me how. But there's things that we do that make sense. We own a house on Tazewell. The alleys were taken over by and blocked off by individuals that lived on either side of us. And I went down and asked Sela, who was town manager at the time, if there wasn't some way we could open up the alleys in town. And that began the process of opening up the alleys behind houses and removing trees and removing some structures because they've been built on public dedicated alleyways. Another issue in handling the parking problem is making sure all the alleyways have access and are wide enough to accommodate parking behind houses if we want them to. But that did take a process. It was several years. I had 2 neighbors that were really upset with me for a while. They started speaking to me again after a year. But it was necessary to get access behind houses and to get parking off the streets. So, sorry, 2 subjects.
Are we talking about sidewalks or?
I know, I talked something else.
Sidewalks, Ed?
Yeah, sidewalks. Yeah, we all agree sidewalks should be continuous around the whole town. I don't know why. Town council, again, has pushed it down the road. I'm sorry, Andy, but you were there.
It's called money. You have to have money to do
Well,
it, Ed.
grant money, do something. You didn't do anything. I think recently I read that they're going to finally do a sidewalk on the west side of the park. Is that true, Mark? I think they're going to have monies and put a new sidewalk on the west side of the park.
Down Park Road?
No, on Strawberry.
Oh. I think that is in someone's plan. Yeah.
I thought I read that recently. But I can't say any more than that. I mean, it's definitely important, and it should have been done a long time ago. Someone should, do something about it.
Okay, I think we're developing a theme here. Martin, anything to add?
1966. My dad bought the house on Madison Avenue, 537 Madison Avenue in 1966. And he decided not to put sidewalks there because he loves grass. So our house has been without
So we know who to
sidewalks
blame.
since 1966. And so I think if we're grandfathered in, we're not going to have sidewalks. That's all I got.
Tara?
I won't beat a dead horse, but I do want to recount quickly our first Halloween here. I got out of the car with our 3 kids to to go trick-or-treating and immediately stepped into wet cement and watched as the VDOT truck pulled away after having just poured new sidewalks. And I reached out to someone in the town administration thinking it was something that was planned, and I thought, who would have thought that was a good idea? And was told it's all VDOT, and our relationship with VDOT is problematic. I think there need to be continuous sidewalks throughout the town, but I think more importantly, we need to do everything we can to repair and manage a healthy relationship between this town and VDOT, so that we can get a lot of things done when we need to. And you can keep your grass.
Thank you, everybody. Final question of the evening. We received a similar question from multiple people, so I'm going to do my best at kind of summarizing and stitching this together. Your standard, kind of most basic job interview question. So, describe your vision for Cape Charles in 5 years. Describe it in 15 years if you're elected to this position. We're going to start on this with Carol and go to Clayton.
5 years?
5 years.
And 15 years. 5 years, I would, 5 years, I would expect to have some changes that have been mentioned here. I think 15 years is probably when the railroad property would start being developed, and the harbor property. I mean, at least beginning to have the plans for what will happen there. I think that anything sooner than that is probably a pie in the sky. But I hope that the small town character stays the same and that we still enjoy getting together and talking about these issues.
Thank you.
So I guess I've thrown this out to people that I've talked to. I've spent a lot of time over the past 6 months just trying to listen and talk to previous council people who've lived here for a long time, people at the town level about kind of what's left in the tank, what's still available to be developed. And it does kind of freak me out a little bit, to be honest with you. I mean, if you think about the fact that there are probably 1,000 home sites already approved decades ago between not just in the historic district or Bay Creek, but even more if you include what's now being built up by 13 in Tower Hill, Kings Creek, the new Beco development. Everything's going to kind of come our way. And there's parts of this town that are going to change dramatically as a result of that, no matter how much we might want to wish that away. So it's going to be a challenge wherever we can to basically try to hold on to that charm and character that we talk about. I think we can do that for a period of time. I think that the Canoni property, I think it probably will become available sooner than 15 years down the road. Well, available sooner, but I think you'll start to see something happening there in the meantime. But I do worry, when we think about, do we need that many parking spots on the beach and that much room for people? Well, all those Tower Hill people, they have boats in their driveways now. They go to the beach. This is their beach. People from up and down the shore come here. Those campground people unload people off buses every day. Things are going to change, whether we wish that they wouldn't or not. So I hope I'm in the room at the point where those decisions need to be made and have a seat at the table and a voice. But it's going to be a challenge, not to bum everybody out here this evening, but progress is a hard thing to just cap off no matter what you do. I mean, the last of the baby boomers are retiring. People tend to go towards the water. When my mom came here, there was no internet. This place was just a hidden secret that nobody, unless you heard about it through a friend or saw a newspaper ad, I mean, it was hard to know it was here. For years, we'd bring people here who lived in Richmond who would come over the bridge and say, where the hell are we? What is this? I've never even heard of this before. That's not the case anymore. Now, when you have those conversations in DC, Philadelphia, up and down the East Coast, and you say you're from Cape Charles, people have a little bit of a familiarity of what that means. So I think it's going to be a much different looking place. There's going to be a lot more people here. I think that's what some people start to feel when we talk about STRs. But it's going to be a lot of second homes. It's going to be a lot of dark homes in the winter, not because people don't live here anymore, but because they're just second homes that people own and they don't spend time here. So that was my melancholy. But there's some hope that we can weave into all that at the same time.
Thank you. Andy?
All right, 5 years, it's, in my opinion, 5 years is pretty much going to be very similar to what it is now. But we're definitely have more in the population. If you all don't know, between 2003 and now, the population's increased by 20%. So that's as of the census, the last one. My feeling is a lot more because there's a lot of people moving in permanently. So it's not just STRs, we have families moving here. We've had young families move here. Tara, so did the same thing 20 years ago. So we are still having people move here full time. And if we can market it, work with Main Street and market it for young families, put that kind of in there instead of just the tourism aspect, try to drive that, we might be able to kill some of that.
I don't know.
It's gonna be tough. But we've got a lot going on right now. So Bay Creek is moving a lot of houses and a lot of lots that they're 2-3 years in the backwoods trying to get builders to build. That up there, they're putting in Tower Hill, it's another 80 lots. So that's a lot of small homes, and you're exactly right. And this is the thing I had about our beach. This beach is only 1/4 mile long, and it's the only public beach in Northampton County. So they're coming this way, always. Campgrounds do it all the time. They bus them in. Now I go to the Main Street, they bus them in to the beach. So we've got, the rest of the county that comes down here. I know a lot of people that come down from the county. So some people come in day trippers, rent a golf cart, go park it on the beach and drive it back to the golf cart place. That's what they do. So I think there's going to hopefully be more families and more permanent residents here, I'm hoping, as long as we can drive it that way. That's just a marketing thing, and hopefully it takes off. We still have young families here, still moving here. We need to get more.
Thank you.
And retirees.
Joe?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that 5 years is going to be pretty similar to what we have now. I think we'll have a higher population for sure. There's certainly growth up and down the eastern shore. Matchapungo has a lot, Exmoor has a lot. And the property values are just skyrocketing everywhere. So there's going to be money coming into the area. There'll be a need for 13 to be improved. A lot of people, myself included, I came from Pennsylvania. I wanted to have a small town vibe. Like I wanted this vibe, but I don't think you can control growth. I think it's going to happen. It's happening everywhere. There's a lot of money, and there's a lot of money to be spent. 10 years from now, I hope that the trend does turn out that there's more families, that houses are occupied all year. You don't have to have dark communities for 6 months out of the year. Businesses along 13 can thrive. I think that should be what the vision is, like bring people back into town, bring families back in town, but maintain that small feel. People come here and that's exactly what they say. They come here because they just feel it's a small town vibe. And I think that's what we have to maintain.
Thank you. Tara, tell me about the future.
I wish I could, and I would get those Powerball numbers to myself immediately. I don't know what the future holds, but what I do know is it's coming. Bay Creek is building, and they're building fast. I think the best news out of that, though, is to the man, people will say they are coming here because they love the small town charm of this community. So they're already opting in and getting invested in that small town charm. I hope we as a community can encourage that sort of small town mindset and quaintness out of our new residents. I think that should be our goal as a community. I don't think that that's what the town council can mandate. You can't force people to be great neighbors and nice to people, but we can do that as individuals, and I think most people here do that. I would say within the next 5 years, what we need to do is be smart about how we're managing our growth. And I want to say to Clayton's point about when his mother moved here and no one knew about Cape Charles, I tell people we live here and they're jealous. They are envious of this pristine community that we've been able to bring our children to. And I'm committed to making sure that this community retains its small town flavor, but grows productively and in a healthy way.
Thank you. Martin?
Well, Cape Charles became Cape Charles because of HGTV. HGTV made this place grow exponentially. But I see 15 years from now, Cape Charles being Cape Charles City. I see us being very independent, getting our independent as a city, our businesses flourishing. I see us annexing Cherry Stone down to Kip to Peak, and our town being a city, and Lower Northampton County becoming one of the booms, business booms on the Eastern Shore. Shankitek has that already. We need something down here on this end that represents Cape Charles City. That's what I see.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ed?
5 years goes by pretty quick, I know, because I moved here 6 years ago, and man, it's like a blink of an eye. 5 years from now, I don't think there is going to be that much difference. I hope there'll be some, and I think it should be workforce housing and small family housing. The town's workers, the town's businesses needs workers. They cry for workers every year, every summer. You know, if we can provide some kind of place for them to live, this should help out. And I think the next thing would be the town leadership. The town leadership needs to promote smart growth, not letting developers do what they want, but we have to dictate to them what we want. Bay Creek and Cape Charles, the historic district, seem to have a disconnect. You know, Tara mentioned something earlier about when she comes here in the summer, she has a hard time to park. That just struck me as when she comes here in the summer, well, we're here all year round, and I don't know. I just hope we can, myself, can bridge these communities together. I think there is a difference in the way they think and the way we think, and I hope we can do better.
Mark, last word on vision?
I have some wonderful neighbors, 3 different young families, all from Richmond, all have young kids. 5 years from now, those young kids are going to be coming into their teenage years. And I'm not sure we have the things in place to keep families here and to keep kids interested in coming back once they hit the middle school and the high school years. So I think 5 years from now, we need to have that in place. There's basketball courts, some other facilities that are those types of teenagers, middle schoolers are ones that attend and participate in. I think 15 years from now, the railroad property will be underdeveloped. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have is to do that right. Because it connects our 2 chunks of town, and if we do it right, it'll be something that all of us can be proud of. And I think 15 years from now, that should be hopefully close to being built out, or at least approved and partially built out. 15 years from now, we're going to be a much bigger community. And I like Martin's idea that perhaps it's time to look at what it takes to be an independent city in the state of Virginia, so that we have more control over ourselves and not have to rely on VDOT for everything. In the meantime, I think we ought to get along with VDOT as much as possible.
Yeah. Agreed.
Thank you, Mark. We're almost done, I promise. For this final segment, each candidate's going to be given 2 minutes for closing remarks. You may use this time as you wish. Feel free to summarize your candidacy, clarify a position, correct anything that I did wrong, whatever you want, but try and directed at an issue, not a person, if we can. We're going to start where we began with Andy and going to Clayton.
I've been doing this a long time. I think I'm well qualified. I know a lot of the stuff that's happening and been going on over the years. I've been here for over 20 years, watching 2 cycles of real estate. I've seen developments come, go, get revitalized, and we're in a good place right now. And I can say I was really much a big part of a lot of what happened with the various organizations that I've been with over the years. It took a village to get this to happen. It wasn't just one individual person, one individual group, one restaurant. You've got hospitality from the B&Bs to the restaurants. The countless hours that we've all sat and worked together over the years trying to make Cape Charles come to life. And it's come to life, and it's roaring, and I want to keep going with it. So I'll leave it at that.
I would start by just maybe going back to the very beginning, just because I didn't get to basically say that much about my background or anything like that. I'm a graduate of the University of Maryland Smith School of Business. I'm a huge supporter of those people. And I lived in Northern Virginia for most of my life, ran a successful general contracting company there for over 30 years. I served 3 consecutive terms on the Board of Governors in my previous community called the River Creek Club with 1,150 homes. And we had a $10 million budget and tried to manage, much like the challenges here, varying sets of expectations about what the community was supposed to be like, what standards we were supposed to be reaching for, and how we would accomplish that. And I was asked to serve. Those were not elected positions, they were appointed positions, and I was the first person ever to be appointed to a 3rd term because I was viewed as a consensus builder and somebody who could analytically take a look at things and try to see every different aspect before I made a decision about it. I would certainly hope to do that here. I view every voice, and I try to empathize with everybody in this town and make sure that we're considering everything. I don't come here with a particular agenda per se, and I think that's the biggest thing that I bring to the table. I believe we have kind of reached that point where we're probably not going backwards. There have been times when I've been here where we sparked some interest and then it fell away. We didn't really know what we were trying to do. Bay Creek has been a big part of that, but one thing we haven't talked about a lot here tonight is affordability. Going back to the vision comments, I don't really see this, sadly, within the existing confines of Cape Charles becoming a place where there's going to be a lot of new young families. I mean, the least expensive home right now for sale in this town is over $700,000, which is twice the national average. When you couple that with the fact that if you come here, you better bring a job with you, you better be an active participant and partner with your child in their educational experience. You potentially need to be prepared to drive your kid across the bay if you have a specific educational requirement for your family. You may be needing to budget another $5,000 to $15,000 a year to put your kids in private school if that's what you feel you need to do. There's a lot of challenges and roadblocks that are in the way, and I always remind people, I said, there was a time when I first got here, there were more for sale signs in front of houses than there were houses without them. And the houses were available for $25,000, and the schools have gotten a lot better, and we're way headed in the right direction, largely in part because we now are raising money that's going back into those programs. But I feel like that's a challenge. Likewise with workforce housing, I think that probably is not going to happen within the town of Cape Charles, but we're not an island. You can drive 5 minutes away and find housing at a fraction of the cost that exists in Bay Creek and the historic district. So we can't expect to solve every problem, but I think we need to step up and do what we can when we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol?
Thanks, everybody, for coming and taking the time to be here. I really appreciate it. I'm hardworking. My family will say that I'll say I'm fiscally responsible. My family will say I'm cheap. But I feel like I do a good job for the town, and I think everybody's sweet, so I'll leave it at that.
Hey, I too want to say thank you to you all that have stayed the entire time and listened to what we had to say, and for the Historic District's group for sponsoring this forum. I think we have the possibility as a community to really make what we've all come to live in, the reason we came to live in King Charles, to continue that purpose and to even expand it in the different types of things that we do. The collaborative events, the small town feel of a community has a lot to do with the types of things that we do, and we do a lot of things really well, like July 4th celebrations and festive Fridays and concerts in the park and potluck dinners for the community. That's what small town is about, and we just need to encourage our neighbors to participate in those. I, for one, have started welcoming my short-term rentals. I don't know if they're good or not, but I walk over, knock on the door, and say, "Got any questions? Let me know." And here's some cookies. So we can all make that that small town feel, no matter where we are. We can create and keep the small town feel if we get to know each other. So I think that's what we need to think about. And through that, I would say that I'm a collaborator. I believe in cooperatively doing things. I don't think one thing has to be done by a particular group or person. And there have been a lot of examples of that recently, where we've done things cooperatively across the lines of different organizations, and that needs to continue. So thank you.
I want to thank you all for coming tonight, and I have to apologize for my nervousness. I'm not good with crowds, and I'm more of a counterpuncher.
Yeah, I felt it.
You deserve it.
All right. Good.
I had some notes here, I'll have to find them. I think being a past small business owner, understanding the struggles of the businesses in town, what their ups and downs, my background could help in this. I have a background in land use, zoning, planning, building codes, issues the town's going to have to deal with upcoming projects. Their projects include the new municipal building, the short-term, the housing for families, and I can't find the words. Workforce housing. Thanks, Mark. They're all going to have plans, and people need to look at these plans. They have to have people that understand the issues. I think I can help in that area. I like to consider myself a uniter, not a divider, and I think I can help in that too. And I just want to thank you all. And if you want to get to know me a little better, check my website out, www.edwellsforcouncil.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Martin?
Well, I don't have a website, but I will be going door to door to everyone's house. I will take notes and try to get to know what your issues are, because I'm not here for me. I'm here because I think a lot of politicians have forgotten what their job is. Your job as a politician is to serve the people. So I will be going door to door, and I will find out what your issues are, and I will write them down, and I will bring them to this podium. Thank you.
Tara?
Thank you also from me, heartfelt thank you for sitting here for a long night. Thanks for coming. My husband and I are thrilled to be raising our children in this wonderful town. 3 of our 4 children skulked in here a little while ago, and they've been making googly eyes at me since they got here. So if you've seen me blowing kisses, it's to my children, I promise.
Sorry, Bill.
Since we moved here, I've been awed by the generosity, volunteerism, entrepreneurialism, and neighborly spirit of this community. This is a place where everyone gets involved and shares their talents and their time. I made the decision to run for town council because I'm invested in raising my family in a thriving, safe, and beautiful community. I'm committed to the ongoing success and well-planned future of Cape Charles. I'm eager to do the meaningful and productive work that will allow Cape Charles to continue to flourish while maintaining the charm and beauty that drew so many of us here to begin with. Thank you for your time, and I hope I've earned your vote this evening.
Thank you. Joe, last word?
One last thank you. Thank you for being so polite and being here and listening to us. I consider this a recap. If I missed something, I'm going to go over it real quick. Others have mentioned about the importance of a good relationship with VDOT. There's a gentleman that's very helpful at VDOT. I think we need a liaison on the town side in order one person to have communication with VDOT, so we don't have to, maybe there's a way to streamline the process. We don't get a resolution every time we need traffic markings repainted. It would be really, really helpful. It's frustrating that it's considered such a hardship. I think that since we've been here, we have a front porch, and everybody, a lot of people come by our front porch, we talk. I talk to a lot of residents, and I listen. And you have to be very cognizant of what people's opinions are. They're so valuable, and when that's discounted or it's not listened to, you feel like you're just not heard, and it's very, very frustrating. And I think that in itself could be causing people that are so good in this town and that have volunteered to move from the town, because you just feel like you're banging your head against a wall. I want to stop that. I want to stop the divide. I want to stop the bickering. I think we could all solve a lot of our problems, whatever they might be, by coming together, working on committees. There's a lot of people that would love to volunteer to help. And knowing that it's not all me, it's not my opinion, it's not your opinion. Collectively, there's compromise that's needed. And that compromise position will be far better than a decision made by a select few when the others feel like they were ignored. I hope I can bring that to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes our program for the evening. Once again, I would like to thank everyone who helped with planning and logistics, each of the candidates for participating in the process, and everyone in the audience and watching online. Hopefully you leave this forum with a greater understanding of the issues and candidates than when we started. Remember, early voting begins this Friday. Thank you. Have a good night.